I've got Jason Priester from allclemsontigers.com joining me. Jason, I appreciate you doing this.
Anytime, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So we'll probably talk for a while. We'll cut this into a couple of videos, but the first thing I wanted to talk about was transfers, incoming and outgoing transfers. I know you and I and everyone else in Clemson Nation has been talking about transfers for a while. So let's start with the people heading out of Clemson. We know Hunter Helms, offensive lineman Mitchell Mays, tight end Sage Ennis, wide receiver Bo Collins, Toriano Pride, and maybe safety RJ Mickens. Maybe he's going to the NFL, but it sounds like he's headed out in some capacity. Or you could speak to that if you're nodding no. But my first question is, are any of those transfers surprising to you?
None of them were really surprising to me. I guess the most surprising was Bo Collins. But I look at it this way. Clemson's got to be better at receiver. They got to be better at boundary. And you know what you've got in Bo. And no disrespect to him, but he's not that guy, man. You know what you've got in him now. You've had him 3 years. I'm not convinced he's not hit his ceiling. I think he's hit his ceiling. He is what he is. And if Clemson wants to get back to where they've been in the past, that is a place they've got to be better at. So you see those guys coming in, TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall a little bit. Maybe the plan is to go snag one out of the portal. Don't know about those discussions in those exit meetings. No telling what was said, but if any of them surprised me a little bit, it would have been that one, but I can't say it outright shocked me or anything.
Yeah, and for folks who are watching this, we discussed some of these in our Bunches channel. If you'd like to join that, check out the banner below. If you donate even just $1, we'll get you an invite into that. But one of the folks in there was guessing Bo Collins would go, and it doesn't make a ton of sense to me because he would have been the number one outside receiver again. But to your point, I'm not sure that it's not the best for all parties, because it felt like, and this is something where you and I kind of have a little disagreement. We've talked about this. I felt like they were loyal to some of their guys to a fault. Coming into the season, I thought if you're counting on Adam Randall and Bo Collins being your starters on the outside, you're in trouble. And they seemed to believe in them and kind of give them that shot. And it seemed unsurprising to me that they didn't come through with big seasons. I know a lot of fans were thinking Bo could have a 1,000-yard season. I had a lot of people tell me that. They believed in him. I just am not so sure that Clemson has been serious about using the portal to actually bring in true impact players. And, I know they considered that lineman Olu Oluwatimi from Virginia. I know they gave him an offer, but generally speaking, Clemson's an elite recruiting program out of high school, but all they've gotten is Hunter Johnson and Paul Tyson. So I don't know if that's poor planning or poor recruiting or bad luck. Maybe a small sample size. It's only been, basically 3 years of the portal being like super impactful. But do you think there's a shift in philosophy in terms of being aggressive enough to say, hey, we have a guy returning, we have a guy who could start, but he's only so good and we're going to replace him? Have they gotten to that point?
I don't know. I don't know that the philosophy's changed that much. I think it's kind of going to remain. I think you're never going to see Dabo kind of revamp the roster or retool the roster through the portal. I do think you'll see him use it to fill gaps. And I think they had every intention on doing that last year. I think they were going to address 2, maybe 3 positions last year and just kind of got caught off guard with some of the super seniors coming back, filled up the spots. You end up at 88 scholarships. And even if you take the 3 from the walk-ons, you're still at 85. But Dabo's philosophy is, and like it or not, agree with it or not, and I'm not here to say whether it's wrong or not, it's kind of graduation. He's going to be loyal to you through graduation. I'm not sure you're going to see him running a ton of guys off. Maybe you see one here and there get the nudge, and maybe Bo did. Maybe he got a little bit of a nudge. I don't know. I don't know what took place in those conversations during those exit meetings, but I do think that Dabo Swinney is as competitive as a guy as anybody out there. I don't think he likes to lose, and I think he fully believed that bringing Garrett Riley in to revamp that offense and bring in a new scheme was going to fix what ailed them on that side of the ball. And I think he found out real quick that they had some deeper issues than that. It was going to take some more moves. He needed to make some more things happen. And we're kind of seeing some of those pieces start to fall into place after this season, with now that they've had another down season, even more down than they have been the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I think we are seeing those changes. I put out a poll on X and asked if people would rather, had not necessarily been better, but gotten lucky to the point where they go 10-2, because a lot of these losses were kind of bad luck. So could they have gotten just a little luckier and went 10-2, but not made some of these changes that seems like they're making, or status quo make changes, and overwhelmingly people are saying, you know what, I'd rather bite the bullet one time and just go 8-4 and really make these changes. And, among those is what we're talking about, being more aggressive in the portal. And so they've already offered one guy, Alan Heron, from Shorter College, an offensive lineman. Do you think they land 1, 2, 3, 4 transfer targets? By my count, there's currently 84 players on the roster today, and that assumes a couple things in Clemson's favor, like Barrett Carter returning. So do you think they'll land a couple? And if so, what positions?
It's one thing to target them and go after them. It's another thing to land them, because portal recruiting is different than high school recruiting, especially if you're going after big time guys. They most of them are commanding big time dollars, and that's something he's not going to get into bidding wars. He's probably going to be just as selective in the portal as he is in high school. Like it or not, it is what it is. So I do think this is the year that you see them land at least one. I don't know if it's going to be the Heron kid or not. He's kind of blown up since Clemson offered him and he went public with that thing. They probably prefer he didn't announce that thing publicly.
I'm sure they would.
I think they like to do a lot of that work behind the scenes, and because again, as soon as he announced it, man, the offers just started rolling in. But I think you're going to see them try to address the offensive line, and I think defensive end is definitely a spot they could look at. And because you don't have a lot of experience coming back there. You got TJ Parker, you got those freshmen, you got, is Cade Denhoff going to be your starter next year? I don't think that's the recipe. There's definitely a gap there that needs to be addressed. And then if you lose Barrett Carter on top of Jeremiah Trotter, you might have a gap at linebacker. I don't think you want to count on Sammy Brown having to come in here and start immediately. Assume he's going to be in the 2 deep, but that's a big ask to ask of a linebacker to come in here and start immediately. And again, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility they look at receiver. I'm not sure we've seen the end of. I think they might lose one more receiver for us all said and done, and they might end up having a spot they can bring one in.
Yeah, we'll see what Brandon Spector is going to do, if he's going to really use a COVID year and come back, and if Coach Sweeney is going to allow that. If not, you would think there's space there to take a receiver. Defensive end, I think you make a great point. I don't think Cade Denhoff is a bad player by any means, but to count on him to be your starter, to me, feels a lot like counting on Adam Randall to be the starter the previous offseason, a wide receiver. It's a little risky. And then absolutely counting on true freshmen like Wesco to come in at wide receiver, or Sammy Brown at linebacker just seems like an unnecessary risk. And so we'll see how many spots are really open. But there's still plenty of guys. I think some offensive linemen have a high chance of transferring out, especially if there's a incoming transfer. So I think there'll probably be about 4 spots in total if Clemson wants to go after that. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do. I think if they could land 4 guys, I think they could be a playoff contender, immediately next season. I'm really optimistic about their future with some of these changes. And I want to talk to you more about that in a second, but let's go ahead and wrap this video and we'll pick it up here in just a minute.